Well, guys, this is actually episode 333, kind of our lucky number, isn't it? Three. I like it. 333 of the 3
Yeah.
Point Podcast, Prep Pigskin Playoff Preview Night. I mean, we're
Yeah.
gonna have a lot of fun talking some high school football. And as always, we're presented by the Memorial Healthcare Wellness Center, Shiawassee County Shining Star. More info at memorialhealthcare.org. Starting lineup of other partners include ALS of Michigan, AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori and Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, and Shiawassee County Fair. You know, I kind of laid it out. This is episode 333. We've talked about it before. How on earth have we done this every single week that many times? You know, I mean, we have to work around schedules. I know I'm the guy that's got time to kill, but Matt, you got a young family. Jared, you got a lot of stuff going on, but we always seem to have a time for this. And I think part of it is, yeah, we like each other, but we're passionate about some of the things we talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I can only talk to people at work about the Lions and Michigan football so much. They're sick of hearing about me talking about the national title and this is the Lions year and stuff like that. So I've got to meet up
Right.
with you guys once a week so I can get some stuff off my chest.
It's a release. And what I've started to do, and I don't know why I haven't been doing this. I mean, it took me 330 episodes to realize I need to do this. Because I've started like taking notes throughout the week. There's so much stuff that happens that I forget about, or even when I'm watching like a Michigan game or a Lions game, it's like I started taking notes during it because it's amazing the release that this podcast is. I don't know if 50 people listen. I don't know if 5,000 people listen. But for those who do, I appreciate it because it is kind of almost like a therapy session, especially with a year like we're having with Michigan football. It's kind of how it feels sometimes.
It's funny you say that, Jared, and this could be a generational thing too. I don't know where you do it. Do you put it on your phone or whatever? I have a little office in my man cave in the basement, and I have some scratch pads that kind of sit next to me. And when some topic comes up, I just write it down, you know, and then by the time it's the day of recording, you know, I kind of cipher through it all and I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
That's the way to do it. Because you can, we kind of follow stuff throughout the week or whatever, but if you don't take a few notes and you kind of, going off the dome, as they say,
Right.
it kind of comes off that way. You might be like all over the place. You got 9 thoughts you're trying to get out or whatever, but it does. We talk about it, how we do this once a week, and it is impressive that we've only taken a handful of weeks off, whether for vacations or health reasons or, other different things or whatever. But we do it once a week. For the people who do it every day or 3 or 4 times a week, they can get to that breaking news. Sometimes it stinks. Like we'll talk about whether it's say the Lions or Michigan football or something like that. And then the next day, like a coach gets fired or, some big breaking news. And we're kind of like, oh man,
it happens to us every week, man.
It seems
tomorrow,
like it does.
Fucking Max Crosby will be a Lion tomorrow morning. It happens every week to us. It's not even funny sometimes.
Yeah.
But you're right about the notes. Like I take notes, and I think about that every week. Sometimes I listen back to the podcast. What makes Colin Cowherd good is how he's able to just have all these different talking points, all these different notes, and it's seamlessly. It's seamless. I can't do that. I sound like an idiot whether I'm prepared or not. So I don't know where I was going with that, but you mentioned like if you don't take notes, like you'll come across like an idiot. I take notes and I still come across as an idiot.
Well, I think part of it, and we've done a really good job at feeling each other out, stepping in when we need to step in and stuff like that. But we are still 3 of us doing it remotely, so we're in 3 different locations, so you got to kind of feel that out. And then also there's 3 of us. So, I could sit here and talk for 25 minutes straight if I wanted to, but we want to get each other's thoughts and bounce ideas off each other. Whereas, like you mentioned, Cowherd, it's his show. I mean, he brings some guests on and he has some people in there, but for the most part, it's him sitting there. He gets to say what he wants for the next hour or however long his show is, which is a challenge in itself, but that also he can just say whatever he wants for the most part. So. Yeah, we've done a good job at getting a feel for what we want to do.
Well, it really is amazing. We don't talk over each other more than we do. I mean, obviously we do at times, but it's pretty good. We kind of have figured this out to where we're at this point right now. Now, where it goes, where it grows, who knows? We'll see. We'll see how long this thing continues to happen. But it's fun while we do it. That's for sure. You guys got anything that's happened to you in the last week that we need to get on the table?
Ready for Halloween. I feel like this is something. So it's Halloween, I guess, technically. I should have found, let's see if I could find one real quick while you guys are talking. A Halloween background. Do I have one still saved? Oh, yeah, here we go. Let's see.
I will say, Matt, I'm not gonna lie. I actually
There we
did
go.
chuckle out loud seeing your family costume. Your Fix-It Felix, not only the costume, but the little like jump you were doing. That was
It's like an Irish jig or something.
That was pretty great. I got a kick out of that.
That was classic.
Yeah, so for people that don't know, I shared a video on the social medias. We've been doing family costumes basically since Wesley was born. Like a themed costume. A lot of families do it, but we've been doing it. This year we did the Fix It Felix. If anyone hasn't seen Wreck-It Ralph, it's a really good movie.
Awesome
Dad, have you
movie,
seen
man.
that?
No, I actually haven't seen the whole thing. No,
you watch that with the grandkid. It makes me cry every time I watch it. All time.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's one of those it's a Disney movie, yes, but there's plenty of adult humor in there, especially like the old video games that you would remember. It's super clever. So yes, Wreck-It Ralph is what we did this year. I was Fix It Felix. My son Wesley, he was Wreck-It Ralph because he does just destroy everything. So it was very fitting for him. And then my daughter was a character named Vanellope, and my wife was another character, Sergeant Calhoun. Jane Lynch is the voice for her. But so we had all the costumes and we did a fun little video. But those little dances I was doing, because it's a video game, so the dances they do in the movie are like because they're video game characters, and it was kind of on a whim. So I'm glad you appreciated it, though, Jay.
Yeah, that was actually pretty good acting. I'll give it to you. That was it was amazing. It's exactly like the jump he does. I don't even know how to describe it. Like you said, a video game jump. I don't really know.
Hey, Jared, wouldn't you agree though? Matt does it upright. I mean, he's the Disney dad. He does all these things with his kids, man. I applaud you. I've said it before, but I mean, you're doing it upright, man. Keep it going.
It's fun for the kids, and my wife and I have said this. It's fun for the kids, of course, but we have fun with it too.
Oh, yeah.
It's fun for us to get dressed up and stuff too. But so we've talked about it probably before, previous Halloweens. Jared, you kind of seem like, I don't know what it would be for Halloween. What's the opposite? What's the Grinch for Halloween?
No. I'm a big Halloween
Are you a Halloween hater or
No, he's a lover.
No.
Okay.
I wish I was better at costumes. There's only like last year my Connor Stallions costume. That was topical. That was good. I'm a Michigan fan. People related. That was a good costume. I'm not a good costume guy though. I used to have a Homer Simpson mask that I would like throw on, 2 out of every 3 years, basically is what I wore.
Yep.
No, I love Halloween. I love scary movies. I'm not a big trick-or-treating is kind of died. If I'm being, it was kind of growing up as a kid. I experienced it in real time. It was like the Cars scene, Radiator Springs, where it goes from Route 66 is going through town and it's awesome to by the end of the movie, there's nobody going through Radiator Springs anymore. That was like what my neighborhood felt like when I was a kid. Millions of kids were out. Trick-or-treating. By the time I was in high school, you'd get 5 trick-or-treaters. It's kind of depressing to still think about to this day, and I think that's still the way it is. I love Halloween. It's one of my top tier holidays. I don't have the kids to go trick-or-treating. It's a kid's holiday.
Right.
What am I going to do as an adult? I mean,
especially with a girlfriend, if you went out, and was single and were going out to the nightclubs, that might be a little different story.
Right. So yes. I know you recently moved and you don't have to give away an address or anything like that, but are you in an apartment or a house?
Apartment. Yeah. So
okay.
I was
going to say, because I know you did live in a house, so you could have done the giveaway candy and stuff.
I was there for Halloween. I don't remember a single trick-or-treater. And it was a neighborhood in, Berkeley, a nice area in Detroit. Not a single trick-or-treater. It seems to be dying. And that seems to be the topic of the holiday for the last 10 plus years is how trick-or-treating is dying. Why is that? Simply put, why is that?
I didn't know it was.
I feel like now that we're talking about this, I feel like we talked about this topic last year, the trunk or treating.
That's big.
Our great friends at Shiawassee County Fair, they put on an awesome trunk or treating event. I think it's stuff like that that's kind of taken away from the trick or treating.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. You said that on Saturday, I was driving through town and Royal Oak Shrine, or not Royal Oak Shrine. Shoot, what is the elementary school? Anyway, some elementary school, right off of Woodward Avenue, was having a trunk or treat, and it looked like the ultimate party, like blow ups, lights shining everywhere. Like it was slam packed. So I do agree. I think that has definitely taken some of the wind out of Halloween sales. I think a big part of it is also I think it falls on a Thursday this year, which is actually a solid day. That's a good day of the week to have it. But when it's on like a Monday night and it's bitter cold outside, I don't blame kids for not wanting to trick or treat.
Yeah, and I know we've heard about it and talked about it before. A lot of people would rather see it be the last Saturday in October instead of being on the 31st. But I don't know if it'll ever get changed.
Ted, do you guys, how is it at Lake Manitou? Do you guys get a lot of trick-or-treaters? Or
we get a fair amount. I mean, there's somebody that organizes out here a hayride, so there's a whole bunch of kids hop off the wagon and come up, and I would say we average maybe 45 to 50. When we lived in Owasso by the hospital, I bet we had some years 150 different kids stopping by. We had to really stock up the candy for that. So yeah, a decent amount. And again, it depends on the weather as well. But
weather, especially in Michigan. I mean, even here, North Carolina, sometimes by the time evening rolls around, it's kind of chilly. But I definitely remember plenty of Halloweens up in Michigan. You've got your awesome costume. You're so excited, but you have to have a winter coat on over it because it's like 30 degrees. And you're like, I can't just run around in my football uniform or, whatever you are for Halloween.
Yeah, well, not this year. It's going to be kind of balmy, so it'll be nice weather, and it's supposed to be dry, so it should be decent.
This is a deep, dark memory. My last house I ever trick or treated at, freshman in high school. Probably shouldn't have been trick or treating. It was more so let's just chase girls around for 3 hours than actually going house to house. But I was at a house, and it was in my neighborhood, man. And this guy had a very sweet, all the blow ups, all the lights. You walk in the garage, it was like a walk through like haunted house. And I remember I was like just standing there with my buddies, like looking at this house. The guy like slams his door, comes freaking out, like, "What are you guys doing?" Like maybe it was because we were older. I don't know. But I remember at that moment I was like, "Yep, Halloween's officially passed me by. It's time to I got the Homer Simpson mask and I know." So
it's the wave. So you get to the age, like maybe you were there, that no more trick-or-treating, but then you get to college and you have a whole other 4, 5, 6, whatever year window where the Halloween parties are fun again.
Oh yeah.
If for a different reason, but the Halloween parties are fun again. And then maybe you go through another wave where you're past it, maybe until you have kids or, stuff like that. But Halloween's a good time, the decorations and stuff. But so before we sign off, we want to move on to, high school football playoffs. Got to ask, what is your guys's either go-to? What do you hand out for Halloween, or what is your number one best Halloween candy? You're digging through your bag when you're a kid. This is what you're looking for. You're trading everything else for this. What is your guys's? Mine's easy. I don't even have to think about it. It's Reese's, whatever Reese's peanut butter cups. But now they have the pumpkins and all that kind of stuff. So I'll trade the Snickers. I'll trade the Three Musketeer. I'll trade the Milky Ways. Give me all the Reese's peanut butter cups.
I always liked Skittles because I felt like the little fun size Skittles, you got a little more bang for your buck than just like the Reese's cup that was this big. And it's one bite and it's down. So I always liked the Skittles. I thought it was a little bit more, it felt like it was almost like a half a bag of Skittles on that fun size edition. And Skittles are my favorite candy anyway. So I was always big time Skittles.
Yeah, I would say Reese's, but to be a little different, I would say the full-size Kit Kat, not the 2-slicer, but the full-size Kit Kat. Don't chintz out on me. And speaking of that, we give away pretty decent-sized candy bars for our gifts.
Are you going to hand out 3-point pod gear this year?
I might. Yes, I worked out a deal with AZee branding, and we're going to give out some gear.
If you did that, no kids would come back to your house. They'd be like, "Do not stop at that house over there. He's giving away 3-point podcast koozies. Do not go over there."
Yeah. Right. And you know what's funny? I know this is probably a little lame, but back when I was a kid, we used to have this one old lady that lived in our neighborhood, and every year I looked forward to getting what she was giving out, because she used to hand make. And those days passed by because of the razor blade thing and all that. But she made homemade popcorn balls.
Oh, yeah.
They were delicious, man. I look forward to that every year.
You know what's funny is I had a neighbor that used to do the same thing. And I avoided that house. What's a popcorn ball? It's a freaking popcorn ball.
How did I figure that?
Popcorn ball. Or I remember getting some apples sometimes. And my mom immediately would say straight to the trash.
Overrated treat. Do you guys agree on that? Caramel apples. They're
kinda,
cool in theory, but my God, they're impossible to eat. They get stuck in your teeth.
Yeah.
I just think it's one of the most overrated treats you can have.
Right. Well, I wouldn't want it for my goodies from Halloween. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, so Halloween, it'll be we'll be loaded up on candy here in a couple days.
Well, Halloween means, as we'll segue right into it, we have a bunch of experts again lined up, little quick snippets on their area in the high school playoffs. But we're going to take a look here at our area. Jared, I think you got a couple things from your area down there in Detroit.
Yep.
We'll get it all rolling with the Prep Spotlight right after this. All right, guys, let's jump right into it. We got a pretty heavy boat tonight. It's the Prep Spotlight presented by the Jacobs Insurance Agency, local, independent, and trusted. Where do we want to go? Do we want to start local here, or Jared, do you want to get yours out of the way?
Oh, I think we start local. I mean,
okay,
Corona, it's a killer, man. I mean, we're gonna be rooting for him, but the snooze to you, we love that guy. But man, talk about a team that had a tale of two different brackets.
Yes,
it's Corona. You went from having what I would say pretty much almost. I would say they're going to be the favorite in most of those games leading up until Pontiac Notre Dame Prep and I believe the semifinals to now you got to play Pontiac Notre Dame Prep at Notre Dame Prep in round 2. That's a killer.
Yeah, that's where I was going to start too. D5, District 1. Cavaliers at home, at least. They were the D5 state runner-up a year ago. A lot of talent came back. As you talked about it, though, we've talked about it before. District of death, really, with a potential trip to Pontiac Notre Dame on the road if they get by week 1 against Hamady. And, the Cavs are battling a couple of critical injuries. And, it is next man up for Coach Steve Herrick. But to move on, the Cavs are going to have to rely heavily on their skilled and experienced lines and senior quarterback, Caden Cowdery. He's thrown for over 1,300 yards on the season, 12 TDs to go along with 625 yards rushing and three 6-pointers. I'm going to be at the Cavalier Nicanese Field on Friday night. It's not our live game, but I'll be there. We're going to try something new this year. I'm going to be phoning in some live scoring reports in the game we are carrying, which is Ovid Elsie at Almont. And that's my next one. That's Division 6, District 2. Marauders lost their regular season finale to fall to 7-2, but still have quite a few points. But they got a real tough draw on the road over towards the Thumb, Almont. I'm not sure if they're ranked 1 or 2 in the state in that division, but that's a tough matchup. But if the Marauders can step up, I mean, they made the semifinals last year, and Chesaning should get by Lansing Catholic, but don't look past them. We've seen that happen before.
Man. Remember Lansing Catholic versus Durand?
I know.
Years ago. It's tough because LTC has that championship pedigree, and it's a type of offense they spread you way out. It's almost like a college offense that a team like Chesaning just hardly sees. So that's a tough draw. I think Chesaning will squeak by, but that's a 50-50 game in my opinion, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, you mentioned Almont. I mean, they're 9-0. So Chesaning, here's your reward for having a 9-0 regular season. Obviously they have the state championships to their, that they won a while ago, but this is potentially one of their big historic seasons. 9-0. Here you go. Well, Almont, that's 9-0, and then even OE, even though they did drop 2 games, they finished the season 7-2. If Ovid Elsie could somehow beat Almont and then you have a potential rematch, that's just tough. If a rematch is never a good idea. So it's kind of like, here you go, Chesaning. Congrats on the awesome regular season. Good luck getting out of your district.
I saw a lot of people call that, like, not even just us in our area, but across the state. Like, that's the division of death.
Yeah.
In this year's playoffs, it really seems like tough draw for both those schools, but good challenge and a good opportunity to win a couple big time games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ovid Elsie for Coach Travis Long, for them to pick up the win, they need a big game from their quarterback, Mr. Everything, Trice Tokar. Chesaning, as we've already talked about a little bit, needed to disregard Lansing Catholic's record. We've seen what they've done in the past, but their 3-tool man, Braden Florian, he led the state in rushing last year. He's booted a 56-yard field goal, and he's going to be key for the Indians' success if they go deep at all. Him and quarterback Max Volk.
You never know. You never know if a game comes down to a field goal, and if you've got to, we saw the Corona game, a couple of weeks ago came down to a field goal. So you never know when you need that kicker.
Right. And, the other thing I did notice, it's funny when you start looking at the playoff points, and we've talked about it before. Some of these schools have made it in with losing records because of who they play. Corona, they play in a real tough league. They have 59 points. I think they're third in their entire division with playoff points. And the Marauders in Chesaning, their playoff points don't stack up near to what Almont does. So its strength of schedule means a lot the way the playoffs are currently set up.
It does, but it also doesn't. I mean, you're saying that they really don't seed the bracket. It's all about where you're located, essentially.
Right.
Well, they sort of seed it in your in your geographic area. I mean, they seed it by the amount of points in the district anyway.
Right.
But what good does it do you? It's a shame, man. I mean, Corona's got maybe the toughest draw of anybody, and I didn't know that they had the third most playoff points. We don't need to harp on the system. It's not a perfect system. It's doable. If you're a good team, you're going to win the state title. But we can table that for maybe next year.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to. If you're good enough, you're going to get through your district and you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I thought I'd throw this in there since we carried their games on the radio the last 3 weeks. St. John's on the road at DeWitt. DeWitt's another powerhouse this year. It's going to probably the best team in that division. So the Red Wings probably going to be 1-0. They need a perfect game, and they need Brandon Szumowicz to be back healthy. But that's going to be a tough task for the Red Wings for sure. In Division 8, District 1, Reese taking on the Fowler Eagles. Eagles, again, a real powerful team. I think they're ranked number 1 in Division 8 or 1 or 2. They made the playoffs, guys. You know, we've talked about New Lothrop before, and I'm going to talk a little bit about them again here before we wrap this segment. Eagles have made the playoffs a record 36 out of the 50 years they've had the MHSAA sponsored tournament.
Insane.
Just amazing for, that Class D school. John Spicer's squad, 3 wins over D7 qualifiers this year, including PW, and we know how good they are year in and year out. In 8-man football here locally, in Division 2, Morris Orioles 8-1. They get a chance for a little revenge against Portland St. Patrick. The Shamrocks gave them their only loss of the year, and this one's going to take place at the Field of Dreams over there in Morris. It's their 10th trip to the dance in the last 11 years. Kendall Crock has just done a great job over there at Morris, without a doubt.
Yep.
Some of their key players, Joel Fisher and Wyatt Cartier, both rushed for over 1,000 yards, and sophomore Wyatt Valentine, 8 picks to lead the defense, which gives up only 10 points a game, a little bit under 10 points a game in an 8-man football. That's pretty impressive, because it's a wide open game.
Wasn't one of the state title games last year? I feel like I remember talking about it, or maybe I just looked it up. There was one of the teams that won. I think it Martin scored like 74 points in the state championship game. So
Yikes.
I know you've talked about 8-man football is wide open. So
it is
electric.
It's kind of fun to broadcast too, I mean, it's quick pace for sure. Before I wrap this part up, couple shout outs. A shout out to the Owasso Trojans. They just missed the playoffs, finishing 5-4, their first winning season since 2012. They broke 14 team offensive records, tied 2 others. They're definitely going to miss Hoyt Patrick, but I mean, he was a stud on both sides of the ball. But his brother's back, Liam. They got a good junior and sophomore class, so things are looking up for Ron Tyner and the Trojans. And I started to mention a little bit the New Lothrop Hornets. They've had a hell of a run. Missing out of the playoffs this year, though, for the first time in 25 years. Clint Galvis, with his 2 state championships, he's going to have a lot of extra fire in his belly to get ready for next season.
Oh, he's already scheming for next year. He's like the scene at the end of Friday Night Lights, the movie. Billy Bob Thornton's taking down the depth chart. Clint Galvis he's already doing that. He's getting ready for next year. But yeah, first time since 1999 that they're missing the playoffs. Same with Muskegon. Missing the playoffs for the first time since 1999. So yeah, 2 historic programs in their respective areas and divisions not making the playoffs. That's a big deal. And I saw with Muskegon, they won the state championship last year. So obviously a new state champion in that division, Division 2. Southfield A&T also, they won the state championship last year in D1, not in the playoffs. Wow. So couple new state champions happening in those top 2 divisions. It's kind of a cool storyline. But you mentioned, I know, Jared, you're going to give a few thoughts maybe on that Detroit area. You mentioned Snooze. So, Snooze is a friend of the podcast, and he will say his projections are not 100%. So I saw some people kind of giving him a little bit of a hard time. You got this wrong, blah, blah. And he puts it, there's always the disclaimer. This is just a projection. It's not 100% accurate, but usually it is. What did he tell you guys or us? He like 95% correct.
Pretty accurate.
I'm telling him, I know for a fact, it's kind of funny to think about. My senior year, the only team he got wrong was Corona.
Which is pretty crazy. But I was going to throw out too. So Goose Poop, another friend of the podcast, if you check out his stuff, he does a lot of point spreads and predictions and going off of like kind of like gambling type stuff. I don't want to say gambling because it's high school, but it's kind of like, Vegas style lines and that kind of stuff. But he put out his latest thing was his projections, who can win each division. Corona, some of the area teams, not at the top of his list right now. In D5, Corona's number 10. Pontiac Notre Dame Prep is actually number 2, the second best odds to win the division. OE and Chesaning 7 and 8 in their division. Almont's number 2. So some of our area teams, that was just a quick glance at it. Some of our area teams have a little bit of a tough hill to climb, according to Goose Poop's projections.
If this was like the college football playoff and like where, it's like Big Ten, ACC, like who got the best draw, this, that, like us mid-Michigan, us Shiawassee County, we got bludgeoned on
right.
Sunday, man.
Yep.
That's just the reality. But
It is.
like we talked about, 2-3 minutes ago, if you're the best team, doesn't matter who's in front of you, you're going to find a way to win those games.
So who is it? So Southfield A&T not in the playoffs. It's got to be Belleville, right? That's what.
Yeah. So,
but they lost to Howell.
Yeah.
So
tough one to Howell. Yeah.
So I'll throw out a few of my quick thoughts on the Detroit area, as we'll hear from other experts who know a lot more than I do. But yeah, you mentioned it, Howell. I mean, what a fun team that is. That's high school football at its finest. I mean, Belleville might have more talent, but Howell, pure wing team. My favorite part of their squad, Bobby Kanka, who plays defensive end and tight end for Howell, wears number 14. He's going to play interior lineman at Michigan. But because they just have this massive offensive line that's almost like a college offensive line that can beat teams like Belleville, he plays tight end for them. So I just what more do you need to know about a wing T, Howell high school football team than the fact that their offensive line is so good that they have a Michigan interior lineman recruit playing tight end for them, wearing number 14. It's hilarious. They're damn good. And it's just what a perfect encapsulation of high school football that Howell versus Belleville game really was. Came down to the last play.
No
Both
doubt.
Teams, that's what high school football is all about. Those Friday night lights. What a great game. So I'm definitely excited to see what Howell does. And that they're just going to be able to bludgeon, quote unquote, Mullings people to death in the playoffs. Another hopeful potential matchup I can't wait to see. Undefeated Detroit Catholic Central potentially would be facing Belleville in the regional final. That would be the third round of the playoffs. I just think that's a great program-defining win for both sides. Justin Sassante, in his second year at Detroit Catholic Central as a head coach, has really gotten things going this year. They're a damn talented squad, but Belleville's going to have the best player on the field no matter who they play, and it's at the most important position, quarterback, Bryce Underwood. I think that game in the regional final is one to circle as maybe the game of the entire playoffs. That's going to be a fun one to watch. Can't wait for that one. Then finally, I'll just throw this one out real quick. This, to me, is the story of the area. That's Birmingham Groves, 9-0, Division II team. Brendan Flaherty's their head coach, been there a long, long time, damn good coach. This seems to be kind of his time. This is his legacy team. I mean, they are loaded. They have an offensive lineman, Avery Gawk, who's committed to Michigan, and most notably, Barry Sanders' son, Noah Sanders, is the running back running behind that loaded offensive line. That's one of those teams, I'm working the state finals. That's one of those teams, man, you pray to God they make it there because the stories are abundant with Birmingham Groves. So it's going to be fun. The playoffs, I think D1 is as open as it's really ever been, in my opinion, with Belleville clearly showing that they can be beat on any given night. So I can't wait, man. It's going to be an awesome playoffs. And judging from last year's state finals results where every game was a good game at Ford Field, I think we're due for that again this year.
Well, awesome stuff, guys, with good preview of what's going on in mid-Michigan, the Detroit area. And let's go elsewhere and see what the other experts in the state have to say in their territories.
Jacobs Insurance Agency has served Shiawassee County and the surrounding areas since 1977. Just like 3 Point Podcasts, we've had 3 generations, Gary Jacobs Sr., Gary Jacobs II, Brian Jacobs, and myself, Noah Jacobs, serving our community, with offices in Waterford and Owasso on M21, just west of Home Depot. Stop in or go online to jacobsinsurance.com to get a quote or get your questions answered by our team. Jacobs Insurance is a proud supporter of our local schools and the proud sponsor of the Prep Spotlight. Insure everything, local, independent, and trusted. It's our family working together to protect yours. That's the Jacobs way.
Yousef Nasser of ABC 12 Sports checking in with my guys at the 3 Point Podcast. Playoffs right around the corner. Here are some of my top storylines that I'm curious to see unfold. In Division I, could we see a rematch of that instant classic that we saw in the SVL Red Championship game between Davison and Grand Blanc 2 weeks ago? The Bobcats will face Lapeer in the first round, while Davison will face Oxford. If both GB and Davison were to advance, they would square off, and the Bobcats would host that matchup. That was an absolute fireworks show. Grand Blanc getting the win behind Jake Morrow's 7-touchdown performance, but the Cardinals have a terrific quarterback in his own right with Jackson Dosh, the junior. Looking forward to see that matchup if it were to unfold, as those teams represent a great chance for our area to be represented deep into the Division I playoffs. Another story to watch is a heated rivalry game in the first round of the playoffs. Linden and Fenton in Division III. The Tigers got a narrow road victory against the Eagles on October 4th, winning that game 24-21. Keep in mind, Fenton has only lost to Linden once since 2012, a loss in the district finals against the Eagles in 2022 when Bryce Eluke had one heck of a performance, 295 yards. By halftime of that game, that's a loss that motivates the Tigers to this day. Should be a great one between those two Flint Metro League schools. Third thing I'm interested in seeing is how many state finalists we get from our coverage area. In 2022, we had 4 teams make it, with Gladwin defeating Frankenmuth to bring home the D5 state title. And last year, we had the Corunna Cavs as well as Ubley going to Ford Field, with the Bearcats ultimately winning the D8 state championship. Division 4 and Division 5 have been particularly strong in mid-Michigan relative to the rest of the state. Goodrich and Frankenmuth have been two of the best teams I've seen this year. Those are two schools I have my eyes on representing the ABC 12 viewing area in Detroit a few weeks from now. That's going to do it for me, Yousef Nasser with ABC 12 Sports. I'm going to turn it over to my guys with the 3 Point Podcast.
This is Jason Hutton, and here's 3 things I find interesting heading into the high school football playoffs in 2024. We start in Division II, where you have 3 of the top 9 teams in the state in terms of playoff points, all playing in the same district. Northview won the OK Black. They had their first perfect regular season in more than 50 years, and yet the Wildcats find themselves packing their bags and heading south to Byron Center for the opening round of the playoff game. The 8-1 Bulldogs have more playoff points. They're the 2 seed, and they'll host Northview in what should be a whale of an opener. Meanwhile, Mona Shores is the 1 seed. They host Traverse City West. It's a loaded district, no doubt. The winner of this district will have a chance to make a deep run in the playoffs. And what's even more interesting is it does not include defending state champion Muskegon, who missed the playoffs for the first time since 1999. Crazy. How about in Division 3, where John Shillitoe leads a Zeeland West team that I think has to be considered one of the handful of favorites to win a state championship. The Ducks are 8-1. Their only loss is to a very good Unity Christian team. Shillitoe has led Zeeland West to 4 state titles. He has 335 career wins, 7th most in state history. Is this the year that Coach Shillitoe and the Ducks make it 5 state championships? They are the 2 seed in their district. There is potentially a district final looming with 8-1 St. Joseph. If it happens, it would be the 3rd time in 4 years these 2 schools have met in the postseason. And number 3, Unity Christian in Division 4. The Crusaders have been dominant this year. 9-0. They knocked off Pontiac Notre Dame Prep in the regular season finale, handing the Irish their only loss of the season. So as this year Unity Christian gets it done, remember this group of seniors were freshmen in 2021 when that unbelievable Crusader team lost that epic state final to Chelsea 55-52. So can Craig Tibby's bunch get it done this year, have an undefeated season, and win it all? They have to be considered the favorite in Division 4. Those are the 3 things I'm watching this postseason. I'm Jason Hutton. I'll be calling the Lakeshore Game of the Week on 107 MUS The Moose. We have Whitehall and Forest Hills Eastern this Friday.
Hey everyone, this is Austin Szumowicz from WNEM TV5 Sports. Glad to be joining my guys at the 3 Point Podcast once again. With playoffs finally here for high school football, there are plenty of exciting matchups that got announced on Sunday. Let's go through a couple of them that caught my eye. First of all is our game of the week for Friday Night Lights. It's Clare versus Ogemaw Heights. This will be a rematch of the top 2 teams in the Jack Pine Conference, with Ogemaw Heights winning the conference title in their first year in the JPC. The Falcons got the win over the Pioneers back in week 1. A little bit of a rematch between these 2 teams should be an exciting one. Meanwhile, in Division 8, it's a Big Thumb Conference rematch between Ubley and Harbor Beach. These 2 teams went at it earlier in the season. Harbor Beach got the decisive win on their 9-0 season, winning the Big Thumb Conference. These 2 going back at it is always exciting. It's always a rivalry match. Harbor Beach may be favored, but there is a chance for an Ubley upset. Should still be an exciting match in the Big Thumb. In Division 3, we'll have a Flint Metro League rematch between the Linden Eagles and the Fenton Tigers. Fenton opened the year with a 7-game winning streak. A win over Linden was one of those, but it was only by 3 points. It was their smallest victory on the season, so Linden fought hard. They finished the year 4-5. going into this game, it should be an interesting one because they just escaped with a 3-point win over the Eagles. Fenton looking to make it out of districts for the first time since 2016. Linden looking for a revenge win, and this could be a very close one just like that first matchup, so it could be a very interesting match come Friday night. You have just 3 Mid-Michigan teams in Division 1. Grand Blanc will be going up against Lapeer, Davidson going up against Oxford. This is an interesting one because Grand Blanc upset the Davidson Cardinals to win the Saginaw Valley League Red title, but then the very next week, in Week 9, they lost to a 3-win Romeo squad in an upset loss. Davidson got a dominant victory over Lapeer to close out the regular season. So if Grand Blanc gets the win over Lapeer, Davidson gets the win over Oxford, that rematch, especially in district finals, could be incredibly intriguing. Both teams got to make it out of the semifinals first, so both of those games could be interesting just for what we could possibly see in district finals. Finally, we have 5 remaining undefeated teams in Mid-Michigan that are looking to make big playoff runs starting on Friday. In Division 5, you have the Frankenmuth Eagles. They're very familiar playing at Ford Field, looking to make it back. Chesaning has been on an incredible 9-0 season in Division 6. Meanwhile, in Division 7, you have 2 schools, the Ithaca Yellow Jackets and the Millington Cardinals, that are undefeated. And finally, in Division 8, we mentioned them already. Harbor Beach will be facing Ubley. They are also undefeated, looking to move to 10-0 with another win over the Bearcats. It's win or go home now. Playoffs have arrived in high school football, and it's going to be an exciting few weeks as teams try to make it all the way to Ford Field. I'm Austin Szumowicz from WNEM TV5 Sports. Thanks again to the 3 Point Podcast for having me back on. And tune into Friday Night Lights on WNEM TV5 News at 11 every Friday night for all your high school football highlights.
Beedon here from GetStuckOnSports.com. Excited to be talking postseason football with the guys at 3 Points Podcast. For those of you who don't know, we cover the Blue Water area, so St. Clair, Macomb County, a little bit of Sanilac County, and a little bit of Lapeer County in there. All in all, we had 12 schools qualify for the postseason, from smallest to largest in terms of enrollment. In 8-man football Division 1, we had Deckerville. In Division 8, we had Ubley, we had Harbor Beach, we had Marine City, Cardinal Mooney. D6, Almont, Marine City. D5, Armada and Richmond. D4, Croslex, Marysville, St. Clair. D3, Port Huron High, and D2, and Port Huron Northern. Some of the things to look out for in this postseason from the Blue Water area is in D5 at Ted, as I'm sure you guys are well aware, Armada, pretty darn good this year, and they are poised to make a big run. They get a favorable matchup in the early going, a rematch with Richmond, a team they beat 42-0 in the regular season, and then a matchup between either Hazel Park or Southlake in the district final. But then it would be a huge showdown with Notre Dame Prep, probably the 2 favorites on the right side or the east side of the bracket to make it to Ford Field. I know Kyle Rowley and his crew thinking they can have a historically great year for the Armada Tigers. In D6, I mentioned Almont and Marine City, 2 teams that have made no strangers to Ford Field over the years, but they could play each other this year in the postseason. In a big surprise on Selection Sunday, Almont gets pulled west with Ovid Elsie, Chesaning, Lansing Catholic in that district. Marine City stays on the east side of the bracket. They will be in a district with Warren Collegiate. That is due to be one of the biggest district finals in any division in the state. They'd have to get Marine City, that is, would have to get past Lumen Christi to get to a state final. A tall task, but if there's ever a program to do it, Marine City is one of those that are known to win those big-time games. In D8, you want to talk about one of the pound-for-pound toughest districts in the state. How about 9-0 Harbor Beach, 8-1 Clarkston Everest, who just lost in the Prep Bowl by a foot in overtime, and Ubley, while 6-3, they have won their last 6 games, and their 3 losses have lost a combined 2 games. That district in D8, I would almost assure you, is going to produce a team at Ford Field, although the winner of that one likely has to get through Fowler. Real quick, some other hits to go off. Port Huron Northern has had a great season. Unfortunately, they draw De La Salle. If they get past them, they'll either have to beat Roseville or Grosse Pointe South. Port Huron High, despite being 4-5, have a home game. I'm sure you boys will love that conversation with Port Huron High. Losing record home game in the playoffs. They take on Grosse Pointe North. Marysville and Croslex played for just the first time since 2008 in an opening round matchup. Marysville, best record since 2016, looking to make a big run there. St. Clair back in the playoffs after only winning 5 games the last 2 years combined under Coach Andrew Zalkowski in his first season at the helm. That'll do it for all the postseason things to talk about here from GetStuckOnSports.com. Oh, real quick, 8-man, Deckerville, they might be the favorite to win the state title. Look out for Bill Brown and those Eagles. That's all I have for GetStuckOnSports.com from the Blue Water area. You can listen to our radio broadcast all the way through at GetStuckOnSports.com. Appreciate you guys inviting me on to talk football here in the postseason for 3 Points Podcast. I'm Brady Beedon.
Hi, this is Brian Calloway from the Lansing State Journal with a look at some interesting storylines as the playoffs are concerned in Greater Lansing. I'll start with DeWitt, which went 9-0 in the regular season and had one of the best playoff point totals in the entire state, finishing with the 3rd most playoff points. DeWitt has the top playoff point total in Division III and has the look of a team that could be a very strong state title contender like they were in 2020 and 2021 under Coach Rob Zimmerman. The Panthers, had some impressive wins during the regular season. They knocked off Hazlitt, they beat Mason, they beat East Lansing. They wrapped up the outright CAAC Blue title last weekend with a 55-20 win over Everett as well too. Elliott and Abram Larner have been dominant players for them and put up some very big numbers while fueling an offense that has been averaging close to 50-some points a game. I think they scored 597 points during the regular season or some insane amount of points like that. They set the school record for points in the game twice this season, scoring 69 against Hazlitt and then 70 in a win over Hurricane, West Virginia as well too. So they've been absolutely dominant this season. They could be home through the regional as well too. So I'm expecting good things from them in the playoffs. Ithaca is in a similar situation like DeWitt and could be home through the regional round of the playoffs. But what I'm watching with them is that they could have a very tough district championship game against Pewamo Westphalia. Pewamo Westphalia has lost twice this season, but those 2 losses have come by a combined 4 points. When you look at falling in a tight game to rival Fowler, and then they lost by 1 to close the regular season against Lansing Catholic as well too. But I think that could be a very interesting district final if it unfolds, and so it could be a very challenging step in the road for Ithaca, which completed a 2nd straight perfect regular season and has had a lot of success in the playoffs over the years up there. Looking at Division 6, Ovid Elsie and Lansing Catholic ended in the top 10 of the coaches' rankings, but they find themselves in very difficult district when you look at Chesaning and Almont, who are both unbeaten, being their opponents this week. That's just a very challenging road for both of those teams to have to go through. Ovid Elsie is coming off the run to the state semifinals last year in Division 6. And, whoever comes out of that district, whether it's Lansing Catholic, whether it's Ovid Elsie, whether it's Almont, or whether it's Chesaning, those teams are going to be battle tested just based on having to go through 2 top 10 teams in order to get through. The other thing I'm looking at in Greater Lansing, there's a lot of things to look at, but one of the things that has piqued my interest is Leslie football. Leslie has had one of its best seasons in over a decade. I think they went 8-1 in the regular season. They bounced back from their lone loss of the regular season that they suffered in week 8 to beat previously unbeaten Hanover Horton to win the Cascades Conference Championship this past Saturday. The Blackhawks are led by sophomore quarterback Joel Cranmore. He's got a very dangerous receiver option, and Jaden Colby as well too. Both of those players have put up big numbers to fuel what's been a very strong season for Leslie, which hasn't won 8 games in a season since 2012. So they've been a very good story in our area, and it'll be interesting to see if they can carry that over into the postseason and just do some things that they haven't done in a long time. It's been a while since that program has even hosted a playoff game as well too. So definitely been a big season for the Blackhawks. This is again Brian Calloway from the Lansing State Journal for 3 Point Podcast. You can follow me on X at Brian_Calloway.
I'm Tyler Young from Fox Sports Marquette. Let's take a look at 3 interesting things from the UP football playoffs for the 3 Point Podcast. Firstly, Pickford is going to be the team to beat in 8-player Division I. They're averaging about 55 points a game, and I don't see anyone stopping them. And the real story is Tommy Story, their quarterback. He has been phenomenal. If he continues to do as well as he has this season, Pickford's going to be almost impossible to beat. I mean, I've seen him play at least a couple times, and they are very good. By the way, their first playoff game is going to be against Munising. They just played them last week. Final score was 64-8. A little one-sided there. Going to 11 player now, one team that's in from the UP that I think has a great potential for a run is Iron Mountain. The combination of Ian Martell, their quarterback, and their tight end Oscar Kangas has been deadly this season. They're coming off a win over Nagani to end the season, and their district, there's not a lot of challenge in it as far as I'm concerned. You've got East Jordan, Bark River, and Manistee. Bark River, I think, has the best chance to do something against Iron Mountain. I don't think they're going to be able to. Iron Mountain will win the district, and I think they are poised for a very good, deep run in the playoffs. For Marquette, they're not in the playoffs. A little surprising given the fact that they're 6-3, but the problem is they're in Division 2. That's my third point, is Marquette in Division 2 is the 5th team out of the postseason. They've been D3 for several years. In Division 3 this year, they would have been in comfortably, but because of their schedule, they don't play enough big teams. They play UP teams, they play downstate teams in their conference, and it hurts them because they don't get the playoff points and the bonus points from playing other D2 schools. They didn't play any D2 schools this year. Most of them were D4 and below. So for Marquette, obviously you're thinking, well, wait a minute, we're 6-3. Are we being punished for where we are in the state? Hard to say that, but not exactly a great feeling for Marquette. 6-3, 50.111 playoff point average, which would have had them, I think, 20th in Division 3, puts them 37th in Division 2, and they are out. For the 3 Point Podcast, I'm Tyler Young.
All right, great stuff. We really do appreciate our friends of the pod helping us out, throughout the state, bringing great insight. They always participate in the Prep Pigskin Preview, and now the Prep Pigskin Playoff Preview. So a lot of P's there.
A lot of P's, a lot of threes, but no, you said it. We appreciate it because really we've got a good group of people that, they have crazy schedules just like us. And when we ask, they usually deliver. So
right.
Even sometimes on short notice. So no, we appreciate them giving us some insight.
For sure.
Again, the Prep Spotlight presented by the Jacobs Insurance Agency. Make sure you give them a call. Local, independent, and trusted. Well, we'll get back and we'll take a look at professional football and college football. We had a couple of interesting games last weekend. We'll get into it right after this.
So Sharon Moore, A+ game plan. That was a D'Antonio-esque game plan that worked for perfection. No turnovers, no penalties. And people will be like, wow, how rigged is this game? No penalties?
Right.
Flat out, there was no egregious penalties. Yeah, I'm sure Michigan had a couple holdings that they might have missed, but no egregious penalties. That's
right.
Amazing. That's how you win this rivalry game. That's how you do it. Honestly, I thought this was the best game plan he's had all year, best coaching performance he's really had, even dating back to last year. I thought they finally started using Orgy, like we talked about, in the similar way that they used last year. And look what happened. Orgy had a few big-time plays, man. And call me crazy, Coach Dan Casey, a Twitter account, posts, plays, kind of his favorite plays of the week. And, in the past, he's posted clips from like 1930s. And one of those plays that's come from the 1930s, QB sweep. It's one of the all-time great plays, man. Teams always know it's coming, especially when Orgy comes in the game. But I tell you what, it puts a lot of pressure on that defense, especially on that edge, to not let him escape. And he did on that one big-time run down, Michigan State's sideline. I thought Michigan played a great game. They didn't turn the ball over, which was a big-time key. The defensive line played great. I just really thought like this was the best Michigan has looked all around all season. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that. I mean, close to game time, we found out that Michigan was going back to Davis Warren. Now we know Jack Tuttle basically had a career-ending 5th concussion and among other injuries. So you don't like to hear that. But,
we were bullied into retirement as well.
Right.
Somewhat.
So, yeah, we were wondering before we knew that injury if Jack Tuttle was going to be starting. Davis Warren starts, and it was that's what the thought was. Go in there and just play a clean game. don't turn the ball over. You're going to have to score some points. Just don't give Michigan State, a short field. Don't give, their sideline energy and stuff because you're turning the ball over. Play a clean game. Give yourself a chance to win. And I'm right with you. They did that. They ran the ball. Mullings wasn't going crazy. Even Donovan Edwards not going crazy. But Davis Warren hit passes when he needed to. They even brought out a couple little trick plays. The Donovan Edwards pass that we've been waiting for.
That was beauty.
Yep. And the defense played good enough, especially against, Michigan State's offense can put up some points. So, was it the type of game that makes us now we're making a run to the Big Ten championship? No, because we'll probably see that come to a halt this Saturday against Oregon. You never know. But no, Michigan played the game they needed to play to beat Michigan State. And hey, kudos. You don't want to say too much, but kudos to Sharon Moore for getting those guys up, because if they would have lost that game, we'd probably be sitting here right now on the podcast saying he's in over his head, fire him.
Right.
It's not going to work.
And that's a great point, Matt. And you go ahead, right? I'll just say real quick, Ted. So the Michigan State game to me is the ultimate measuring stick as a Michigan coach. I realized that after that game, man, I'm really happy with Sharon Moore. If you beat Michigan State every year, I'm never going to be calling for your head. That's I need to check myself on that next year, right around this time. But honest to God, if you beat Michigan State every year, the rest is gravy, man. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's kind of funny. Jonathan Smith, I think we all agree, looks like he's going to be Michigan State's answer for a while. He looks like a decent coach, but he made the comment afterwards. He didn't know what he was getting into, really.
Right.
How crazy it was, this rivalry. And we saw that, later on. We'll talk more about that. But also, kudos in that game. Colston Loveland, the tight end, He had a couple TD catches and a 2-point catch. He stepped up big in that game when he needed to. And I was going to say, good job by Sharon Moore again with his whole staff, because they took it serious. They made adjustments and they came up with a great game plan, and the team listened and did what they're supposed to do. So big win.
Yeah. And you're again, if you're Jonathan Smith, man, I'd be upset if I was a State fan. I think that loss is on Michigan State staff. I really do. What the hell were they doing before half? I don't know shit about football.
That's true.
Was everybody were you guys on your couch what the hell are they doing? Why in a 7-6 ball game, you have the lead, you've controlled the whole first half, you have a quarterback with turnover issues, you have a defensive line on Michigan that's mauling guys. What were they trying to gain out of that? It just seemed like a big time risk. If you have, Dylan Gabriel at quarterback, who's, just the ultimate decision maker, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But a sophomore quarterback on the road, night game environment, you're coming out trying to add a few more points before half with a kicker who already missed a kick earlier in the game. That was just idiotic. And that
turned the game around. Yeah, turn the game around.
Kudos to Sharon Moore and Michigan for being able to turn that 12 seconds into 3 points. It just felt like Michigan State's defense just had missed assignments. Speaking of that drive, all of a sudden Donovan Edwards just wide open out of the backfield for the easy 25-yard gain to set up that field goal. It's what the hell's going on State's sideline? It felt like the coaching staff let them down. You have to treat this game with a certain level of edge. We learned that from Urban Meyer in the Michigan-Ohio State game, dude. It's like you're preparing for that game all season long. Mm-hmm. Judging from Jonathan Smith's comments, it didn't seem like they were. They had no new tricks. Their one new trick was a dribble kick that didn't even work. So it's man, they just really left a lot to be desired. I felt like they didn't do a good job getting Nick Marsh the ball. The one time he touched the ball, he made an incredible play. The play of the game. It's how's this guy not touching the ball 10, 12 times minimum? I don't care if it's end arounds, reverses, whatever. Get the ball in his hands. It felt like they really let that team down and that fan base down flat out.
You think it's a one-off, or you would disagree with me that he might not be the guy?
No, I'll be honest. So we're talking about notes. I wrote this down right after the game, and I don't know really what it means, but I'm just going to say it. So you think about in Batman, there's a scene where Joker says to the guy who's detaining him, the officer, he killed 6 of his buddies, and he goes, they say you learn more about a man in his final moments than you do if you knew him your whole life. I learned more about that Michigan State program in that game than State fans have learned by reading all the blogs and watching every game this year and knowing all the recruits. I learned more about that program and where it's heading in that 1 60-minute period than I think just about anybody could have. I'd be hitting the panic alert. I really would. Do we want to move into that, or where do you want me to? Let me just leave it at that. You guys go ahead and pick it up.
I don't know about panic, because it does seem like Smith is a good coach, but you have to wonder, because D'Antonio That's one reason he turned things around. He understood that rivalry. He hated Michigan and probably still hates Michigan. And that's part of why that rivalry flipped. Urban Meyer won't even say the word Michigan, and Ryan Day still says that team up north. And, Harbaugh would say whatever the heck Harbaugh would say about all the teams, the team down the road. And, he would just call Ohio State, Ohio. Brady Hoke did the same thing, called Ohio State, Ohio. So there's something to understanding those rivalries. And yeah, maybe it was a wake-up call a little bit for Smith, like, wow, like Ted, you said, got to take this one a little more seriously. But I don't think it's panic mode because, he's a first-year coach and they're rebuilding the roster and everything. But I did see some fans saying they didn't like seeing Smith's demeanor, not really taking it seriously, not like really upset, with Colson Loveland bringing out the little brother comment and some of this other stuff. I don't know if Jonathan Smith was just trying to play it cool or maybe he just doesn't understand the rivalry. I don't know.
Right. And you don't want him to be something he's not. And he clearly is that chill, which I like. I dig his style. That's why I like him. I think he's a good coach. But sometimes, man, you got to bring out the motivation for a week like this. And it just felt like they were missing that edge.
Well, it was like we all remember when we've all seen the clip a million times of D'Antonio saying pride comes before the fall. I mean, right. Michigan State fans still share that over and over and over, and rightfully so. But you could see the hatred coming through in that clip of D'Antonio could not stand Michigan.
I love D'Antonio, man.
Jonathan Smith had, his big comment after the game was, we'll remember this game for the rest of our lives, or we'll remember this game next year. And it just kind of felt like, I'm not really fired up by what you said.
Here's the reality. Believe me, we're not going to forget about it. You just got Davis Warren. We're not going to forget about it.
Right.
And what I meant by the whole Joker quote, a rivalry game like that where the pressure is notched up to 11, think about it. Childs, he played decent. And here's what really irked me after that game. I saw a chart. One smart and Twitter account probably put it out. It was like a chart where Michigan was trending downward and State was trending upward. And it was like Michigan is here, State is here. It's like Michigan's like a sliver above Michigan State. Here's the reality. I'm sick of hearing about them building this program. You would rather be Michigan in their shittiest year than whatever State is building right now. Like you hear people throw out, Aiden Childs is 19 years old. Great. He's 3 games away from being a upperclassman with really what to show for it. Yeah, he had splashes, but what are you actually building? You don't need to build a program like you needed to 20 years ago. You can bring in a whole new roster. They brought in 60 new players this year. Think about Indiana and how they walked into a shitty situation. The guy brought players from freaking James Madison, for God's sakes, and they're 8-0 a year later. What is State building? Genuinely, what are they building? Michigan is going to be able to replicate what they're building in one offseason with some NIL money. You don't do what they're doing. I don't think it's in today's day and age. Building a program it's a fallacy. Are you good or not? And when a shitty Michigan team clowned you like they did, that showed me what this program is. For right or wrong, maybe I'm a jackass, but that was what I took from that game.
Yeah, you may be onto something there too, and especially in today's day and age. Are you building a program or are you building year to year? Because every year is going to be different in today's day and age with all the money that's being thrown around, all the easy transfers. It's the Wild West, and there's no other way to put it. And you might be right. I mean, maybe the program building days are done, and it's just you got to go for it every single year.
Yeah, every year. And that's why some guys like Saban got out of it. That's part of why Harbaugh got out of it. And, there's been some other coaches retiring from college basketball and football because they don't want to have to deal with this every year. You want to build a program. You want to have guys like Michigan's team last year, guys who were on the roster for 4, 5, 6 years. And that's not how it is. So yeah, that's one thing with Michigan State. And maybe we just don't know with Jonathan Smith. You knew what kind of program Mark D'Antonio had. You knew what kind of program Jim Harbaugh, Urban Meyer, all these guys had. I don't know, what is Jonathan Smith going to recruit? Is he going to be big in the portal, getting a bunch of guys? I don't know. I guess we'll see. But it's a shame, we talked about it here for 10 minutes or whatever, the actual game. But it's a shame that, everywhere else, the big talk about that game is what happened afterwards again. And we've talked about it before, that this rivalry, even though, Ted, you will forever say that the game, Michigan-Ohio State, is the game. That's the biggest one on the schedule. But the Michigan State rivalry has turned so nasty and just like like mean and like just people hating
Hatred.
each other online and just personal, that it's like translating onto the field. I mean, it's been going on for, I don't know, 10 or so years, that there's always dirty plays or, personal foul penalties and stuff like that. But now it's starting, legal stuff is happening. We remember the tunnel incident where a couple of Michigan State players actually got prosecuted, that whole situation. And then this year, big old melee happens after the game, and it turns into a he said, she said, whatever, who did what, who headbutted who started it. Is Mullings stomping a guy on the field, and Big Ten's having to investigate. And it's just all this stuff where it's like, it's getting ridiculous. It's one thing to have a hated rivalry and like on the field, maybe some pushing and shoving and some jawing and stuff. But when the stuff is happening after the game in the tunnel or on the field, a fight happening, that's where it really is like, no, the game's never going to go away. We're not going that route. But it's like something needs to happen. Like, I don't know if it's the coaches need to just be like, guys, shake hands and move on. I don't know what it is, but the rivalry really is just turning nasty.
It is. And I'll be honest, if I was, and I think Sharon Moore kind of said this today in his presser, he said, like, I don't condone what happened. Like, we're going to handle it internally. Like, he should be fucking pissed. Yeah. Exactly what you said, Matt. Instead of talking about, and I'm not, it's on both sides. It's embarrassing for both teams. If we would have just, like, the reason I'm disappointed in Michigan as a Michigan fan, this one, Colson Loveland, dude, just chill. Just chill. I have no problem with what he said. I love what he said after the game, but just let it die. And for this Michigan State player, this was my biggest pet peeve when I played football, especially as a quarterback, because you're getting blown up on these kneel down plays. You had 59 minutes and 50 seconds to fight. Right. Why are you like trying to blow up Colson Loveland when they're just kneeling the ball down? The game is over. The game is over. Let it go. I hate that so much when players go balls to the wall. You had all that time in the damn game to make your presence felt. Don't do it when the game is over.
Right.
And then for Loveland, like, you took the bait. You fell for it. They've tried baiting you so hard, and you fell for it. And now we have a melee breakout, and quote unquote melee. It's a typical football shoving match. I don't know what the hell's going on with Mullings. I don't know who he's stomping. If he is even stomping anybody, I feel like there would be more news or pictures of injuries at this point.
Right.
Well, the Big Ten released that they're not taking any action.
And I don't think they should. I didn't think
video.
They really should have a couple years ago either with the whole Michigan State thing. I don't remember exactly how that panned out, but
right.
Do you guys think if Nick Saban is coaching Michigan, do you think that he would stand by what happened with Loveland? Like, is Loveland playing this week? I just thought it just was a bad look. If Michigan's 8-0, like what we saw last year with Quorum and when that melee happened a couple years ago, like, I'm fine with it. This is a locker room of winners, champions. Like, this is a team that hasn't done anything this year, man.
I think
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Loveland had two things: the headbutt, okay, that came as retaliation, and then this whole little brother thing that continues on. I mean, it just continues on. Yeah, you won, you beat them 3 straight times, so you throw that out there. It's just, to me, okay, it's fueling the rivalry, but it's immature. Why do you got to bring that up again?
I don't know. I don't disagree with you because it is just goofy, but to me, that's fun.
That's
like a fun rivalry thing.
Yeah, okay.
Michigan State fans take it personally, of course. So that's why Michigan fans continue to do it. And players continue to do it. If Michigan State fans and players laughed it off and was like, yeah, you guys are idiots, it probably would go away. But because it pisses them off so much, that's why they're going to keep doing it.
Well, wouldn't it piss you off?
Kind of fuels.
And it goes both ways. Where, one, if I was a State fan, man, would I hate Loveland. 3 wins, gets out of there, clowns you on his way out, 2 touchdowns, and has that comment. That stings forever. Just like Kirk Cousins, 4-0 against Michigan, stings forever.
Yeah.
It hurts the other way because guess what happens when Michigan loses? Oh, little brother beat you. Like, oh, you're supposed to be big brother. Like, I think it's funny. I get a kick out of that on both sides. I don't have a problem with the comments. My problem is that you couldn't remain calm in that moment where you bash heads for a second. Now a whole melee breaks out. And there's a last chance. I reference that show a lot. Their whole season got ruined because there's a rule in junior college where if you leave the sideline, like, you basically you cannot play for the next 2 games.
Oh.
Michigan did not hold back whatsoever from clearing the sideline. The second those 2 guys engaged, the whole sideline flooded the field.
Right.
To me, it's like, man, I just don't think a Nick Saban team does that. It rubbed me the wrong way. As a Michigan fan, I'm okay to admit that. Still, Michigan State fans are blowing it way out of proportion. Who gives a shit? It's college kids pushing each other.
Yeah.
Right.
So I see both sides, but I just wish it didn't happen.
Yeah, the Mullings thing that happened, it seemingly got really blown out of proportion because so the video happens and there's the whole melee, and the big difference between the tunnel incident is there was clear video of the Michigan State player taking his helmet and smashing a Michigan player over the head.
Yeah.
You could see it on video. You could see exactly what happened. So that's why, there were charges filed. You could see it happen. The Mullings thing, like you said, Ted, the Big Ten came out and they reviewed all the video, and these college football games. Jared, you've been there on the field. Ted, we've watched and we've been a part of productions and, everything for however long. There's cameras everywhere. There are cameras everywhere. They have every angle possible. And yes, it's a big melee, but the Big Ten came out, they looked at everything and they couldn't see anything. Was Mullings literally, as Michigan State fans are saying, stomping on a player or a Michigan State staffer? I mean, we don't know that, but like you said, Jared, if he was literally stomping on someone, a 250-pound running back with cleats on, I think there probably would have been someone with injuries who would have came right out after the game and been like, look at, I was the one on the ground. Look at my face, or look at my arm, or look at my shoulder. Mullings was stomping me on the ground. And that hasn't happened because very likely that didn't happen.
Right.
There was probably some sort of melee down there and there's some more shoving and, whatever the heck was going on. But to claim that he was stomping on a guy is quite the claim, because that would be probably prosecution or charges if you're sitting there stomping on a dude's head.
I don't know how there hasn't been more come from it. There's that one look. It looks bad in that look, but man, how has nothing else come from it? Exactly what you said. There's cameras everywhere, phones everywhere. Big Ten, the BTN network has 15 different cameras up, probably shooting that same area. It definitely wasn't a good look. I almost, a part of me, whether it's right or wrong, whether Mullins maybe was breaking something up, I don't know the inner details. I would love it if Sharon Moore said, we're benching a few of these guys for this game. They're probably going to get their butt whooped anyway by Oregon. It seems like a PR win in my book. Is that crazy?
Could be. No, yeah.
Again, if they did wrong. I don't know the full details. If they truly did wrong and they're going to be disciplined internally, I would.
That's one take, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think the mentality they got to have is we need everybody that we have,
Right.
and we're going to try and upset Oregon at the Big House. Why not?
Well, is it all about winning?
Well, I mean, there's other things you can do other than suspend them from a game. I mean, there's push-ups, there's running, there's all that other stuff you can do internally.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Because if you suspend them from a game, who are you hurting? You're hurting the rest of the team, aren't you?
Yeah, now you're hurting the team.
You can't admit wrongdoing. It's also the reality.
Right.
Why if
True,
I was
too.
from Mark, probably wouldn't do anything publicly. I would do it all internally. The second you admit wrongdoing, now the pitchforks are out, and now there's going to be even bigger, accusations of problems that arise from it.
Well, let's say they all come back. Okay, they got the 3:30 game on Saturday. Number one, the Ducks come into town. Is there any hope at all, in your guys' opinion?
I mean, there's hope because it's a football game, and you never know. Michigan could come out and play their best game of the season. Oregon's really good. It's going to take the best defensive performance of the season by Wink Martindale and that defense. They're going to have to get after Dylan Gabriel. Jared, you brought him up earlier.
He's
having a Heisman type of season. And the offense is going to have to play as clean as they played against Michigan State. Even better than that. No turnovers again, because if you give Oregon more chances, then you're definitely losing. And you got to hope to maybe force a turnover or two. And I think a big thing would be Will Johnson, the cornerback for Michigan. If he can play, that would be big because Oregon has a lot of really good receivers. But no, I mean, there's a chance. Sure. I mean, there's a chance they could pull an upset, create some turnovers, and,
got to play the game. Got to play the game.
I actually think the upset is going to come 2 weeks from now. Michigan, Indiana. I think Michigan's going to beat Indiana in that game. I just think it's too much of a fairy tale story for Indiana. And it would just be the perfect Michigan win. What the hell? You almost root for Indiana in that game just because of how awesome of a story it is. So I don't think it's going to come this week. I think Oregon's too good, and kind of it's just not a good matchup for Michigan with how good they are on both sides of the ball, offensive and defensive lines. Yeah. So I think it's Indiana in 2 weeks, actually.
Well, you're kind of fluffing it by because you're basically saying, Indiana unbeaten, unprecedented, coming into Spartan Stadium. Do you think the Spartans have a hangover from the
No,
Michigan game and play bad, or you think the
I think so.
Spartans maybe upset Indiana?
No, again, I saw a lot. Like, I mean, look at Iowa this week with Brendan Sullivan at quarterback compared to
Yeah,
Cade. It's like
huge.
a totally different squad. So
Yeah.
Michigan State's biggest win of the year at home in a night game was against like a team essentially with the arm tied behind their back. To me, I saw what I needed to see from Michigan State last week. Michigan, I don't think Michigan's that good. And I thought Michigan beat them really in every phase of the game. So I've seen enough from Michigan State. I'm not going to pick them to beat anybody, let alone a team who I think is as well coached as Indiana is.
Yeah, Indiana, they have some quarterback issues. You know, their starter got hurt, might be back this week, but I'd be surprised if Michigan State pulled the upset, just because Indiana, I think, is a quality team, and that hangover that you mentioned, Ted. I mean, Michigan State, they're going to be out to prove a point, but coming off that Michigan game, that's a tough one for MSU.
Yeah, it is. Well, we'll see what happens. A couple good games to watch on Saturday. Let's move it over to the NFL for just a little bit, guys. The Lions just completely destroyed the Titans, putting 52 points up on the board. Their best start now, 6-1 since the year I was born, 1956. Think about that.
Yeah.
But, Jared Goff, 3 touchdown passes, but 85 yards passing. Didn't have to do anything. Special teams just completely dominated. Defense looks good. This team scares me because they're just playing so well.
I know they're almost playing too good.
Yeah.
I mean, like people at work are like, I told you guys before we started recording, they're like, start buying your Super Bowl tickets right now. And I'm just like, man, you got to pump the brakes. Like we're still only at midseason. Yes, we had the Hutchinson injury and there's been a couple other things like with Jameson Williams, but for the most part, like I hope we're not peaking too early.
Exactly.
Because like right now, obviously the Chiefs are still undefeated, but I mean, the Lions are right there, right behind them as probably the second best team in the NFL. And yeah, the Titans stink, but we haven't seen a Lions game like that in quite a while where they're turning the other team over. They're running the ball, special teams touchdowns. They're getting sacks and they're just doing everything. Even Jake Bates is hitting field goals. And I mean, It's just like, there was nothing wrong in that game. Yeah, Jared Goff didn't throw for 300 yards, but he also didn't turn it over. So, I mean, it's just like, if the Lions play like that the rest of the year, yes, buy your Super Bowl tickets right now, Ted.
I got my trip planned.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to create controversy for the sake of it. I mean, this team is playing perfect football right now. You guys, you laid it out. Perfect football. It's honestly kind of surreal that this is Detroit Lions. I mean, and I'm going to put the cart ahead of the horse. I mean, this is the top 5 team in the NFL for the past 2 years. It's going to be a top 5 team in the NFL for the next few years, at the least, in my opinion, no matter what, really. I mean, we just lost our best player, and it's like we didn't even miss a beat.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I'm going to say is, I mean, as Michigan fans here, we didn't quite realize we were in the good old days, last 3 years until now we're out of it. I definitely didn't. I'm going to cherish every one of these Lions games, man. I'm going to cheer on every touchdown, every score. I don't care if it's 60-15 or whatever the hell the score ended up being against the Titans. It was a freaking blowout. I'm going to cherish every one of these games. I talked about it a couple weeks ago where I DVR'd a game. Why would I forfeit that 3 hours of enjoyment that I haven't had my entire life as a Lions fan? We got it now. We probably only got it for maybe 5 years, if we're being real honest, until Dan Campbell eventually will turn on him and he'll be fired somewhere down the road. So just enjoy it while you got it. It's awesome. It's just the best. This is the best. It's football at its peak in the NFL.
It is. And not to create a debate out of nothing because, yeah, they're like you said, it's as perfect as you can be right now. But the one thing I want to ask you guys, are we ready to give the RB1, the starting running back position, to Jahmyr Gibbs? David Montgomery's been fantastic, and he's great. He got the extension, so he's going to be in Detroit, for a few more years. But is it me, or is it like whenever Jahmyr Gibbs is on the field, it's just different? It's different. I like Monty. I like Montgomery. But is it time to be like, all right, Jahmyr Gibbs, you're getting the bulk of the carries?
I'm totally fine the way they're doing it, personally. Yeah. I mean, I think they got a great 1-2 combination. I hear exactly what you're saying, but I think that they're working it well, maybe preventing future injuries by doing it the way they're doing it. But they both bring their own skill set to the table. But man, I hear you.
Yeah,
that
I do
Gibbs
think
has electricity.
Gibbs is the like. I mean, Montgomery did just fumble in the Vikings game, but that drive when they needed it this year, that 2-minute drive, Gibbs played every snap of that drive.
Yep.
So I do think he is essentially the pseudo starter. He maybe doesn't actually start the games. But what's awesome about having two awesome running backs, and I was wrong about Gibbs when we drafted him. I thought it was the dumbest thing I ever heard. It's awesome having two stud running backs like that, because it's like if one goes down, then you're just like, okay, now we just have our normal starting running back. It's like Montgomery is usually banged up once or twice a year. Now it's the Gibbs show. Let's just let him carry the ball, 25% more.
Right.
It's awesome. He's really unlocked. It seems like something these last 2 weeks where he's finally starting to break off long touchdown runs. It felt like all of last year was like, man, he was like one, ankle tackle away from an 80-yard touchdown run. He's had a couple big ones last 2 weeks. It's electric when he gets on the perimeter. It's speed unlike I've really ever seen from the running back position.
Yeah,
I am curious what or if they're going to do anything at the trade deadline. That's coming up. Dan Campbell in his presser kind of said something might be happening. Who knows what that means? But I think we all kind of agree. I doubt they're going to do some major splash Max Crosby, Myles Garrett type of trade. Again, like we were talking about earlier, who knows by the time this drops, maybe they did trade for Max Crosby, but it doesn't seem like that's what they're going to do. But the way they're playing right now, it seems like they might just, pick up a couple veteran guys type of thing and play with what they have.
Don't you think that's probably the route they should go? And again, just to reiterate, okay, it's different than the college game. We talked about programs. The Lions do have a program going right now, and the best way to keep it sustainable is the draft. Why give up draft choices? They got good enough players.
And you don't want to trade for a guy that comes in and doesn't fit that program. Even if it is mid-season, we all love Max Crosby.
Sure.
I'm sure that would work out. But, you don't want to make some big trade for some like superstar defensive end or linebacker. And then he comes in and doesn't have the right attitude, doesn't have the right mentality. And then it just messes everything up,
Yep.
I don't want the contract on our books with Brad Holmes. He's shown that he can, turn draft picks on that such a low deal into stars in the league right away. I mean, look at Branch, for God's sakes. So no, I don't. I've been said it from the start. I wouldn't be pissed if we traded for Crosby, but I'm okay letting it go. You're exactly right. This is you arguably can build more of a program in the NFL than you can in college football now.
Yeah,
they have a great program going. Keep it rolling. Let's keep letting Brad Holmes have shots at the trap. Yeah, it sucks for this year probably, but I don't want to do a quick fix on something that, like I said, 2 minutes ago, we got a 5-year runway here. Like, let's build this thing to be a 10-year runway rather than maybe a 3-year peak.
That's an interesting way to look at it. When you draft guys in the NFL, I mean, you literally have them locked up for at least their rookie contract. At college football, they could commit and then decommit, flip, transfer in the middle of a season. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, one thing we do know, we love our Lions, and win or lose, but hopefully they keep on winning because they sure are fun to watch. That's for sure.
Well, we get this Sunday, they play the Packers at Lambeau Field. So huge one. It's nice to go to Lambeau when it's not December.
Yeah.
So, the weather is still pretty good up there at Lambeau Field, but it's the 4:00 game. So you know what that means. Tom Brady on the call. We're going to get to hear Tom Brady again.
Packers have impressed me. I mean, that game last week against Jacksonville, it seemed like they were going to lose that game the entire way. Malik Willis comes in. Apparently, Malik Willis made like a check at the line of scrimmage to that play that they hadn't talked about since Tuesday. I saw Matt LaFleur saying. Just a cool story what they got going there. And good for Malik Willis. I mean, we've seen this with all these quarterbacks at the different stops, man, how certain staffs and personnel around you really can be the whole difference of whether you're a star in the league or not. So
yeah, and we've talked about Campbell being a great coach. I mean, LaFleur he's proven to be a really good coach, and the only good thing this week I think is Love. Even if he plays, he's banged up. So we'll see how.
Did you guys see the latest report? I just saw this maybe 20 minutes ago. That Ben Johnson wanted the Bears job this year, and that's like the job he would have taken if it opened up. Like Bears fans got to be kicking themselves over that, man. And thank God he didn't. I mean, think of Caleb Williams with him. I mean, we're talking about situations. That's the best situation a quarterback would have ever walked into in NFL history.
Well, I got a comment on that game real quick from last Sunday. I mean, I don't know if I've seen anything like that in a long time. I mean, yeah, we've seen Hail Mary passes before, but the end of that game, I jumped off the couch so high. I couldn't believe what I saw. It was perfectly executed.
Yeah, perfectly executed by Washington and perfectly not executed by the Bears. And I mean, it's at this point, it's been talked about, ad nauseum, but they completely botched that whole thing. I did love how immediately when the Bears, like I said, completely botched that defending the Hail Mary, people went right to how the Lions against the Vikings correctly defended the Hail Mary, where they actually rushed 5 guys.
Yeah.
And they sacked Sam Darnold. They didn't even have a chance to throw the ball. Whereas the Bears were only rushing 3 guys, kind of 4, and they just messed it all up.
And it's funny with today's news of Anthony Richardson getting benched. So I was watching this game at work with some of my coworkers. Anthony Richardson had a Hail Mary earlier on in the day. They rushed 3 and they sack him. And I go, Are you freaking kidding me? You're Anthony Richardson. Like, your athleticism is your thing. You got to be able to evade 3 rushers and get that Hail Mary off. Aaron Rodgers, for God's sakes, can do it. So I just thought that was such a look at not CJ Stroud, Jaden Daniels versus Anthony Richardson, getting away from those 3 rushers. That's got to be like a black mark in film. If you rush 3 in a Hail Mary situation and you can't get that throw off, I mean, my God.
And didn't Richardson also pull himself because he was tired? Are you kidding me?
Tired.
That's one of the receipts. That's one of the receipts we can probably hold on you, Jared. By the way.
Yeah. If he's in Ben Johnson's system, we'd be talking about this guy being the MVP, man.
Hey, by the way, you were talking about the sack. Big shout out to the kid there from Saginaw Valley.
Yeah.
He's making a little name for himself with the Lions there at linebacker, isn't
Nowaski? Is that
Nowaski?
He had an interception this week.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Gives them some good depth, man. It looks like the kid can play. All right, guys, I think we got a pod in the can, so to speak. Again, I want to thank both you guys, obviously, and thanks to the good folks at Memorial Healthcare's Wellness Center, the area's premier fitness spa and more. Details at memorialhealthcare.org. Also want to thank our other partners, ALS of Michigan, AZee Branding Solutions, Jacobs Insurance Agency, Kori Shook and Associates Real Estate Services, Nelson House Funeral Homes, Rivals Taphouse and Grille, Success Group Mortgage and Servicing, and the Shiawassee County Fair. A big thanks to our prep experts who broke down their areas, the playoff teams in their areas of the state. We really do appreciate their participation. And the Z92.5 Game of the Week this week, the boys, Casey and Bart, will hit the road in the Castle Chariot. They'll drive all the way over to Elmont for the Ovid LC Elmont game. I'll be over at the Corunna game doing some live reports on the Cavaliers, and we'll also keep you updated on the other area schools. So
you're going to be, just to check, you're going to be calling in to their game?
We're going to give it a try. We used to do it back in the day. I mean, the Castle at one time, man, we would have like 50 sponsors for these playoff games. I'd be calling the play-by-play. We'd have Joe Smith on location, usually at Chesaning. He'd phone in live reports. We have Andy Flynn phoning in live reports from Morris. I mean, it was pretty cool. Bart was our engineer at the time, so he knew how to work the switches and patch it all together. So we're going to try an experiment to do that again this week. What do you think, Jared?
No, it's awesome. You want me to call in with a live Detroit Pistons score, or
sure,
you gonna pass on that?
Nah, maybe we'll hold off on that one. But again, that's what we got going on. So it could be interesting. Tune in Friday night, right around 6:45 on Z92.5. All right, that'll do it. Peace and love, everybody. Be kind. All right, make sure you vote if you haven't already. I voted today, and make sure you vote. I think we've all voted, right?
Yep,
I know Jared did.
voting done. Yeah.
All right, perfect. And these god-awful advertisements can finally stop, man. It's just so brutal out there. I was going to tell you guys, I'll have a further review down the road. I'm late to the dance. This is mostly a Tedtertainment thing. Finally watched Ted Lasso, okay?
Oh.
The final season, because I got a new iPhone, so I got 3 free months. Oh man, that's what the world needs to be like. Ted Lasso and that whole show was kind, and that's all I got to say. It was fantastic. All right,
actually, I haven't seen the latest season of that yet. To be honest, maybe I'll watch that and give a review with you next week.
I don't think. You didn't see season 3, Jared?
No, I haven't yet. I don't know why. I really don't know why, but I haven't.
We'll definitely do that. All right, we'll leave it there. So long, everybody.